want you all to close your eyes. You're in a locker room. The air is musty, sweaty. You've trained the hardest you've ever trained for the last 8 weeks of your life. There's tension in the air. Your coach comes and checks your gloves one last time, pats you on the back, a little bit of advice. You're about to make the walk. You start to exit the locker room into the arena. The hums of the crowd become roars. With every step you take, you're more grounded. You make your way to that cage. The commission gets the last little bit of Vaseline on your face. You make your way up the stairs. Not that bad so far. The commission's there with you. Some judges. See the referee. Your coaches are with you. And slowly everybody starts to leave. Next thing you know, you're alone in the cage with your opponent. The last thought you have is, this is completely insane. I could die in here. And then, within moments, with laser-like focus, you're dodging punches and avoiding kicks. And then a blow lands. It goes dark. Next time you open your eyes, you're on another stage, in a comedy club telling jokes. Nobody's laughing, you're sweating. Keep thinking, when is this going to be over? Okay, you can all open your eyes now. You're not cage fighter. I used to do mixed martial arts, cage fighting, amateur wrestling. Now I'm a stand-up comic. They're both very similar. They both take a lot of discipline, a lot of determination and preparation. Can you all guess which one's tougher, comedy or fighting? Comedy, yeah. I'll tell you guys this much. At least when you have a bad night fighting, you're completely unconscious. Because you get knocked out and you forget your name. And when it doesn't go well on stage at TEDx, you hope the audience forgets your name. That would be nice. These are two things that I failed at, sports and comedy. But I keep persevering because I love it. I have passion. I found something that I love. The question I always ask myself, if you fail, does that mean you're not successful? I want you to look at every setback as a stepping stone. I want you to think of the power of failure to teach us resilience. Together, we're going to explore how persevering in the hardest moments through failure might lead you to reinvent your life into an unexpected path. So what do you do if you've eaten all your veggies and taken your vitamins and listened to the right people? What do you do if you didn't get the promotion that you really wanted? Maybe worse, you got fired. You know, the path to success is not a straight line, it's a maze. I didn't succeed. The two things I really wanted more than anything was to go to the Olympics and then to fight in the UFC. Does it make me a failure? What about all the people that worked really, really hard, that became pro athletes but didn't make it to the top? We always hear about the people that made it to the top. We always hear their stories. What about everybody else? Can't you be successful if you didn't make it to the pinnacle? I'll never forget the look on my father's face when I got expelled from high school. I wasn't into drugs. I wasn't into violence. I was just a hyperactive kid, always looking for a laugh. Figures. I even drove my moped in class one day to get a laugh from the students. That's a true story. You know, when I got expelled, I wasn't upset because I got expelled and I wouldn't be spending the last year with my peers and my friends and all my athletes. It hit me to see the look on my father's face. I felt terrible. I never disappointed anyone that much in my whole life. I was at the lowest point of my life. I was so young, but I was so down. I knew I had to get out of that hole somehow. My only exit was sport, was wrestling. Surrounded myself with the right people. You know, I spoke to the school board for about 3 weeks. We tried everything we could. We came to a compromise. The compromise was that I would go to the neighboring public school as long as I revamped the wrestling program. So that was a challenge for me. It was an unexpected path. I trained very hard. I trained those kids even harder. took them to the city finals, and it was a great moment of persevering and understanding that, okay, I'm not such a failure right now. Oprah failed. Everybody knows her story. She got fired from her first job at network television, saying she was unfit for TV. Oprah, unfit for television. Michael Jordan failed. He didn't make his high school basketball team. They were resilient. They didn't let that stop them. They persevered, and they became some of the greatest of all times. Losing sucks. You know, growing up, I got into sports. I was an athlete. I was a hockey player, and I was a center iceman, and the centers are responsible for offense and defense. And I was very, very competitive. I took losses very personally. I always wanted to get on there to play the next game. I was always looking to the next opportunity. I had to think like a relief pitcher. A relief pitcher has to go out there and get the save. 3 outs, that's all. Maybe the team is winning 5-0 and they blow it. Does that mean they're a failure? They might be successful the next night. I was the first member in my family to go to university. I got expelled for academic probation. But I graduated. I worked very hard, and I kept surrounded by the right people. I'd said I'd been here before. Wrestling was going well. I had my career setbacks, injuries. I had a shoulder replacement in 2004 that was extremely difficult to overcome. You know, I had to focus on the things that I could control. I spoke to my friend David, who's now still my best friend, went to the Olympics, one of my coaches, and he said, just focus on what you can control. We'll get over this. Most people have to quit. They don't go on to doing MMA after an injury like that. 2012 was my year to win the national championships, and I won. And I wasn't happy. I wasn't happiest because I was going to represent Canada at the World Championships or the Commonwealth Games. The thing I always remember about that moment was when I hugged my father, because he was in tears. It was the highest of the high I could ever feel. And I always remember 10 years ago when I got expelled and the look on his face. That's what I lived my life by, those 2 moments. Where do I want to fit every opportunity within those 2 moments, seeing my dad at the happiest and at the lowest? Those 2 moments weren't flukes to me. Some great opportunities came from it. You know, I never thought when I started wrestling that I would go to the World Championships or win a silver medal at the Commonwealth Games. But I did. I didn't qualify for the Olympics. And that hurt. In 2012, I was completely devastated. I felt like a failure. Every loss, I felt like it was defining who I was and my character. I had to keep surrounding myself with the right people, stay positive, stay passionate, and I kept thinking something good is going to come of this. Something has to. And it did. I was working in media slowly. I was dipping my foot into hosting some wrestling events. I would knock on every door I could to get those gigs. And eventually, I ended up broadcasting the Olympics in French, and I barely speak French. And now I'm doing stand-up comedy in French. That was a huge unexpected path for me, but it's led me to some beautiful, great opportunities. Then I transitioned over to mixed martial arts. Didn't make my mom very happy. I wanted to go to the UFC. And when I had my title fight to make it to the UFC, I had George St. Pierre in my corner, my mentor. Yeah. And it's weird when you surround yourself with such accomplished people, because George surrounds himself with everything conducive to make his life better for his sport. He's failed. He lost his world title fight to Matt Serra. And I saw him revamp his whole camp and revamp his environment to make sure he'd be successful. And he was. Setbacks are not a start from scratch. You're still working forward. You're still moving. I lost that title fight, and I wasn't going to go to the UFC. And I remember at breakfast the next day, I was devastated. And George St. Pierre, he looked at me and said, "Hey man, come on. You're good looking. You're talented. Everything is okay." In George's wonderful French-Canadian accent that we all love, I know. He was right, I was okay. Led me to some other great opportunities. You know, I keep thinking how hard I used to train at one technique for months and months to win a fight, only to use something else. Happens all the time. It's the unexpected path. In stand-up comedy, I'll work on a joke for months and months and months. Bombing. Finally, you get it right. So my life has been anything but predictable. If you would have told me that wrestling would have led me to commentating and mentoring the next generation of athletes and coaching, if you would have told me that MMA would have led me to commentating on UFC Fight Pass and getting to interview some of the athletes, the best fighters in the whole world, I would have never thought so. If you had told me when I was a class clown that I would have been telling jokes in a nightclub, I probably would have believed you there, but. So I want you guys to just fail 10 times, get up 10. Failure is part of the journey. Michael Jordan failed, Oprah failed. Think of failure as a spark to change and a freedom to reinvent your life. We're all going to fail. What are you going to do with it? Thank you.